Welcome back to Vintage and Stuff with your host, me, Drew Heifetz. Thank you for tuning in as always. Very, very, very much appreciated. Today on the show, I have Derek of Wax and Threads. Super OG in the game. Been doing this for 20 years. 20 years. This is a great episode for people who want to stay in this business and do it for a long time because there's lots of good tips about longevity in the business. We talk about, like I said, longevity in the business. We talk about some amazing come-ups and digging stories. There's some good ones in here. You definitely want to hear them. We also talk a little bit about dry rot. All of you guys know I've done some tests on dry rot, but Derek, along with Defunct, have been doing tests and exploring this phenomenon in our business for many, many years now. And they were kind of the first people. They coined the term dry rot. So you want to hear about that. But before we get into it, a couple quick things on the list, some news, not a whole lot to report, but the virtual flea has been announced for April in Houston, Texas. I'm not sure the dates, but go check that out. Hogan is moved to Friday. So make sure you tune in this Friday at 6 p.m. PST for myself and Dead Union going live, talking some shit and selling some stuff. That's all I'm going to leave you with on this episode. If you want to support this podcast, it is a podcast funded by you guys, funded by the people. So you can support me on my Patreon. Go check that out. But without further ado, here is Derek of Wax and Threads Vintage.
We got vintage clothing by the rack, yeah. Just check out my Insta, how you gon' argue with that? Everything you see I manifest. I'm an architect, I think I'ma run it back. We got vintage clothing by the rack. Just check out my Insta, how you gon' argue with that? Everything you see I manifest. I'm an architect, I think I'll have some of that.
Okay, we are on recording. Derek, thank you for coming on the show, my man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm trying to break out of my shell a little bit. I've kind of been comfortable just hiding, selling online, never really showing my face or anything. And I don't know, I guess I'm okay getting out of that. It's been long enough.
That's good, man. I think I promote that shit, and I think it's important. But I think there's still a lot of successful businesses that don't have, say, a face to it.
Yeah.
And they're just more about the branding, and I think that can work too. But it's interesting you said that right off the bat, because I know for you, we'll get into your history here, but I know for you, you don't sell on IG, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct.
So explain your business, which is Wax and Threads, and where you sell and how you sell, and how long you've been doing it.
I mean, for a long time it was just eBay, and what's up, dude? and then it got to where it was just like, okay, maybe we can get another revenue stream going, and let's do Etsy also, and we won't cross lists. It'll be separate inventories, and then built that up to have a good existing inventory, and then it was like, well, let's just do the same thing for Depop, and all new listings for that too.
Yeah.
And so now I try to keep all three at about 1,000 listings.
Sorry, what's up, sir?
Can I after you call, can I have help?
Yeah, but I'm gonna be on this call for a while. You can ask Mom, okay?
But Mom's busy.
Tell her I'm on a call. I told her I was gonna do this. Sorry, buddy. I'll see you in a little bit. Can you close it? Sorry, man. You just keep going.
No apologies.
I'll just cut that.
You know what, man? That's is about as real as you're gonna get. You know,
for sure.
And for all the younger guys in the game, this is coming. I've got
You'll
one
be
too.
here one day.
and that this is part of it. It's a juggle. It is absolutely a juggle.
Yeah, 100%, man. So how old's you have a son or a daughter?
I have a son. He's 11.
Nice.
And
that's a good age, man. That's like, so he's getting into like, you can, at that age, I'm assuming my oldest is 8, so you guys like can do a lot more together at that age, eh?
yeah, like my dad, our like bonding thing, it was never like fishing trips or baseball games or anything like that. Like my dad took me to concerts.
Dope.
My first show, he took me to see Pantera and Skid Row.
Sick.
And that was like the greatest thing to ever happen to me, and like we would typically get like one concert a year, that we would go to together, and I would just look forward to it, for months and months. So that's what I do with my son.
So what have you taken your son to so far?
So it just so happened that like on the 20th anniversary to the day of me seeing Rancid for the first time, they were playing in Fort Lauderdale. And I was like, dude, I want to fly my kid to Fort Lauderdale to go see Rancid for his first show because he loves Rancid. But he was 6. And it was kind of a stupid move. For one, I didn't realize it was on St. Patrick's Day. And then also I didn't realize that was during spring break. And like every 80s movie that I rented hoping to see a boob in the 80s, like took place in Fort Lauderdale on spring break. It's so now I'm down there with my 6-year-old to see Rancid on the biggest drinking day of the year. Dude. In Fort Lauderdale, and I was just like, oh my god,
it's just debauchery everywhere, and you're taking him to like a pretty hard show, and it's just like, I can imagine, dude, that would be super wild.
But glad it happened. But he's seen a ton of bands since then.
You jumped him into the scene. You're like, this is it. Get ready. This is gonna be your life. That's right.
He was like he was in the local newspaper and everything. Like when they photographed him like sitting on the bar, and he's wearing his like cut off denim, and he's got like Ramones patch on the back.
Sick.
And he was like in the paper the next day. It was like, this is sick.
Okay, so let's jump back quickly. So we got cut off there about you talking about your eBay started you, then you got onto Etsy, then you get onto doing Depop, and you said it's all unique inventories or crossover inventories?
No crossover. Well, the only time there's crossover if it's Deadstock and we have multiples, but there's a lot of that going on. But
yeah. So how do you? I guess you said you don't sell on Instagram. You use Instagram to promote, which typically is like what Instagram is meant for, is to promote what you're doing versus like selling. But now it's morphed into this whole market of its own for everyone to sell. And I heard you say something like it wouldn't be giving respect to all the work you put in to those platforms to be now selling on Instagram, because when I think about that, it's like, you have customer base that goes to your site, goes to your Etsy, your eBay. They want to see stuff, and if you're creaming it to sell to other people, then there's going to be just the leftovers, and it doesn't really work.
Yeah, and when you're selling online, like, I mean, there's a reason like eBay gives you 12 pictures or however many. Like, you need that for a piece, and it's hard even on Depop. They only give you 4 pictures, and you're struggling to like accurately represent a shirt in 4 pictures. I mean, that's not enough, and so I don't know. I just never really liked Instagram for selling, but that was before like the lives even, so I mean, this was just based on just the posts. But
totally.
It's just I couldn't handle like all the DMs on there. I would be neglecting everything else. And I've got another business that I run also. So,
what do you do?
I've got it's a used media business. It's just like used DVDs, video games, and all that stuff. But we wholesale it. So I'm shipping out 300-400 pounds a day of just like used DVDs and video games, audiobooks, stuff like that.
No way. And that's a lot. That's a heavy poundage of product. So
it's a ton, man.
Yeah, when you say wax and threads, I think of records. Is that not part of the game?
Yeah, that's what it was. And man, like I wish I could change that name. It's so stupid, like But
I mean, it goes
Yeah,
hand in
like-
hand. I feel like, and it's not a bad. To me, it's not a bad name. But anyway,
yeah, I mean, like at the time, though, when first started getting into this, like it wasn't like strictly t-shirts or even strictly clothes. Like it was really just anything you could get your hands on and sell. I mean, like that's just kind of what it took to survive and pay your bills. I mean, you had to kind of know a little bit about everything. But the two main things that the focus was on were, records and clothes. And
Yeah.
so that's where that very unoriginal name came from.
well,
And
give
then
yourself some
then I
credit.
spent, like-
I like it.
I spent like $40 on stickers, and then I was like, I can't change my name now. Like I'm invested, like,
Yeah. Well,
now
I remember
I'm like,
I had wax and thread stickers on my wall in my office that I got from you. I don't know, 3 years ago. I bought a few things from you, and you sent me some stickers. So it worked, man. I have a very inquisitive brain. I want to know more about this media. So you're getting bulk media, like you're saying, video games, movies. What else?
Blu-rays. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, but it's when we go pick that stuff up, we're picking up 5,000-6,000 pounds at a time, and then we bring it back and then sort it, lot it up, and then just sell it on another eBay account. But this has been it's been like 10 years of doing this, and it was never anything that I thought for one was going to last that long. I thought like, oh, no one's going to want DVDs anymore. Like this is it's a dead media, and it's stronger now than it was when it first started.
Do you think
And
it's
so-
stronger because of COVID and because everyone's home, like looking for weird, rare
No.
DVDs, or?
Because it was strong before COVID.
Okay. Dope, dude.
It's
You're the first person I've ever talked to that does that, and I've heard people getting more into selling DVDs and VHSs lately, like more like cult singles. But you're doing this on a bulk level, and how will you lot it out?
Yeah.
Like, will you lot it out by genre or by?
No, dude, I don't even see titles, dude. I see handful. I could do a lot of it with my eyes closed. It's basically it's just handfuls and handfuls until you fill up the big U-Haul boxes, which is like a 50-pound box, and we try to ship 4 or 5 of those, or have 4 or 5 of those in 7 days a week, and then the Blu-rays, box sets, all this other stuff on top. And I always kind of thought that like, oh, this is probably going to be the last year of this, like it's finally going to die, and still here, still
Keeps
doing
you
it.
going. Nice, dude.
Yeah, it's so busy, man. Like honestly, like there are times where I don't list or do anything vintage related other than buy for months at a time. Like months without ever listing a single thing. But
Because you just
the sales
you have
don't
so
drop.
much stock, and it just keeps coming in. And I guess if you're selling lots, you never have to list anything because the listings don't change.
Oh no! Every lot is different. It's its own unique combination of titles. So those we have to photograph, almost just like you were a T-shirt, man. You got to go through and show what's in it, and seal it up. But that takes up 90% of my time easily.
Wow.
So
I want to get back to the beginning of how you got into T-shirts. I saw on your Instagram you posted you and a friend did 10 states in 10 days or something. And you said that was like 2002 or something, you said, right?
yeah, that was 03. It was All Originals that was also on
Okay.
Instagram. He's still doing it. Yeah.
Nice.
And so so this was like we were working at a head shop together. Like we were selling bongs and records. Like it was like half used record shop, half, it was classic head shop type stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like already super into, like, I think he was wearing like a Souls of Mischief shirt like the first time I saw him. He was wearing like the 93 to Infinity. He's really into like Cypress Hill shirts and like all these vintage T-shirts in 2003. But, looking back, it was like, dude, these were just like 10-year-old shirts.
Yeah, that didn't even have the vintage esteem at that point. It was just like,
Yeah.
you're just into good music, essentially.
Yeah, but he was just like still rocking, these shirts and everything. And so he started really hipping me to a lot of like funk and soul and breaks and, psych and stuff that I was already kind of interested in. I just didn't know a ton about. And he was like super into records and stuff. And so we would get together and just go out and dig. We'd find records, or we'd find boom boxes, or we'd find clothes, or just, anything vintage, we were into and buying. And that was pretty much the start. And so we have the world's longest yard sale that runs right through Tennessee. And I mean, we drove up to the top, and I think we spent 3 days driving down this road, just like hitting all these yard sales along the way. And people set up like in parking lots and stuff along the road, and they'll be like the equivalent of a small flea market that's just makeshift in like a grocery store parking lot, just for these 3 days. And so we're like, dude, this is how we're going to start it. We're going to do the entire length of this yard sale. And then after that, dude, we'll just like cruise around, and see what kind of trouble we can get into and see what we can find. And I had a Grand Dam, and we took some tents, and if we could find a place to like set up a tent somewhere, like in a city, pretty much, we would try to do that. But I mean, there were nights that we were like parked behind buildings, and we're legit, both of us are just like in the front seat, seats laid back. And we were like, yeah, we weren't going to spend any money on a place to stay, and we weren't going to spend any money on any kind of like cooked food, like restaurant food or fast food or anything like that. So we were like literally eating Chef Boyardee out of the can with a thing of stolen Parmesan that we stole from a pizza place right before we left.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is in the summer, and so dude, that Parmesan being left in the car in August, in Tennessee, dude. But like the third day, the car was just unbearable, and the smell.
Dang. Oh, dude, you guys sleeping in there, sleeping in tents for
awful.
A week. The Parmesan, dirty clothes coming out of the thrift stores. I can imagine, dude.
It was sick, dude. It was so gross.
But that's so rad you did that, and that's such, for you probably now looking back on that, you're like, oh man, what good times. Like, that's such a wild experience.
It's my favorite, man. I mean, absolutely. It's my favorite ever. And, we did take some pictures, but I think, I can't remember if like the camera, we had like, one of the wind up, type cameras, but it was definitely in an era where, you're not just on your phone, like taking pictures of everything.
Yeah, you had to like be conscious to get a point and shoot and like fully have it going. So was it fruitful? Do you remember the pics from that long ago? Like we're talking almost 20 years now.
Yeah, like I remember like weird specific things like that we found, and it like had nothing to do with like monetary value. Like, I mean, I remember buying like one of those Garfield like window stickies. You know what I'm talking about, with the suction cups on the hands,
Totally.
And we were so stoked because like we could stick that to the back window and like, so we were just driving around with this Garfield. And I remember getting boom boxes. I remember getting like some 9 Inch Nails record that was on gray vinyl that we ended up flipping for like $100 and being like really stoked on that. But nice. I mean, it was, I don't know. It wasn't anything that like if you just looked at the item, you'd be like, wow. It was mostly just like about like the trip and the experience and being in like at a time in our lives where we could take 10 days off to just go do something stupid like that, and we haven't been able to do it again. So, glad
so
that's under the belt.
How did that trip lead into like you doing this as a full-time gig? When did that start?
Well, man, like for like thrifting, I was doing that like probably, mid 90s, definitely by like 94, 95. And I think like that was just because, I felt like that's what people into the music that I was into, that's just kind of like what they did, that was like part of the look. I mean, like, I think that, you kind of realized that you were a bit of an outcast, and thrifting was a way to not make yourself an outcast, but like, I don't know, like a way to reject, everything that was around you and kind of like separate yourself like as an outcast, at least that's how I felt at the time, and so it was already like thrifting then, and my grandparents were pickers, and they sold at the Orange Show in San Bernardino. I don't know if you're familiar with that swap meet. And so I grew up around that.
So did you grow up in California?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
I'm from the Inland Empire.
Nice.
So
I've done my fair share of swap meeting in the Inland Empire for sure.
Okay. Yeah, man. I'm San Bernardino, and I was there, through part of high school and stuff, and I was moving back and forth, like good punk scene there in the 90s, that I had to be there for. But yeah, man, as far as like thrifting for money and stuff, like I want to say that probably came like around 03. And I remember finding 3 Deadstock Lacoste polos and just thinking like, oh, I wonder if those would sell, and I think I made like $12 a piece on them, and was just like, wow, dude, like I just made like $30 after fees. This is incredible, like
totally.
And then and since then I've probably worked like 3 years, I think, like for a job.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just been that.
Yeah. That's rad. So those were the early days of eBay, and I remember Lacoste items were always a go-to eBay item back in those days, like when we first started. And so as far as you starting in this game, was it always t-shirts, or are you like a diverse vintage seller? Do you sell it all, or?
It's pretty much just t-shirts now, but I mean, like I feel like there was a good decade of paying dues of selling any kind of clothes I could get my hands on. I mean, it was, a ton of Westerns. It was all the members onlys. It was the, you're talking like the Lacoste, of course, like the cardigans, the poly discos. And then, a lot was just kind of learning as you went, you like true vintage. I didn't really have any kind of like a resource or anything to learn from. There was no community that I could turn to. And so it was just trial and error, It was like you find like a Lakeland clicker or something like that, and then, you start to do your research on it. But you have to kind of find one first to know what to research, and then you're like, oh, okay, like shawl collars and whatever. But so you kind of have to like find these things first to know what to even learn about. So
yeah, and that's even to this day, it's like that's still the kind of experience you have to gain, I feel like, because you can research vintage and you can lean to the community, but until you find something, you don't even know it's out there. You know what I mean? Until you see something or have to like have that interest in it. A big reason I wanted to have you on the show is because you and Defunct were a couple of the first guys. You guys made the term dry rot. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Which is rad, so kudos to that.
Except it's the wrong name,
Except
like
it's the wrong name.
It's wrong.
But it's cool. It's great that it at least has a name and that we can all refer to it. And that was you and Defunct back in, you guys, what, like 10 years ago or something?
It wasn't that long ago, man. Like, I 5 or 6 years ago, maybe.
That's funny. Okay, because I feel like, I don't know what we called it before. Maybe, like, because we've been finding dry rot for, I guess, since we started, which we were, like, heavy into it by, like, 2005, 4 or 5. But, obviously...
I guess it's been longer than that.
It's been, that Defunct blog was, like, the only thing online about this phenomena of T-shirts. Dry rot. And obviously I've referred to it many times. I've done my own stupid tests on trying to cure it. Nothing ever worked. And I just thought it'd be cool to have you on and discuss that because I watched your live talking about it. So, do you want to give us a breakdown of like what it is?
Man, it's just a money-saving dye that came into play around 1990. And visually, you can't tell the difference, which sucks. So we just had to find how to tell before it was too late, and so it's the sulfur-based dye, and some teas are going to get dry rot, some teas are not, and I definitely went over like everything in detail in there, but I mean, if anyone's worried, just wash everything. If it's not dry rot yet and you want to just bank it, just wash it once, and I wouldn't be surprised if that just kind of becomes the standard. Like we start seeing a lot less black Deadstock because everybody just takes the safe route and washes it once.
Yeah, 100%. So, like you said, it's the cheaper dyes. These companies had it. They use these cheap dyes, and over time, if those shirts go unwashed, the dye eats away, and that shirt just falls apart. And
yeah, it just gets acidic, and it progressively gets more and more acidic until a certain point.
You guys talked about not a cure, but a way to test your shirts is to soak your shirts and then test the water for pH levels, which you bought these pH testers on Amazon. You said they were like pretty cheap, like $5 a test.
Yeah, they're like $10. Yeah, they're super cheap.
And is it a one-use test, or is it multiple-use test?
Yeah, it's I've had some for years.
Oh, okay.
And so when I first started, I started using litmus paper because that's what I remembered from chemistry class, And so I would like dip the paper in and like look for it to change color, and I was like, oh, this is terrible, Like, and you couldn't really tell like how acidic and stuff it was, and then. I think it was like a suggested ad or something that came up because it'd seen my search history looking for something, similar. And then that came up and I was just like, wow, what is this? And I was like, give it a shot, and I can't believe it worked because, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. It was just kind of, I don't know, eyes closed and just trying whatever I could.
So you test the water of the shirts you soak pre-dry rot. If the water's acidic, it means your shirt's going to dry rot. So it means wash it for sure. And
for sure.
Probably like periodically, because you can wash a Deadstock shirt once and it can still go if that dye level is still like really high in that shirt.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not positive like what the chances are of it still dry rotting after it being washed, but I've definitely like tested the acidity of shirts that would have been dry rot after they had been washed and they were testing neutral. So
okay.
I mean, it's there might be some like residual acidity in there, but I think it would be so minor that it would be nothing to worry about.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. I think it's just an interesting topic right now because I'm very much about the economics of our business right now because it's wild and out of control. And I think there's people out there that have a lot of money in shirts that could find themselves sitting on garbage, dry rot shirts that they put hundreds and thousands of dollars into in the future here because they never took the steps to test them or take care of them. And that would be sad, man. That would be sad if that was you.
And I don't think it's going to be vintage dealers that are going to be sitting on that potential dry rot stuff. I think it's still going to be like your shops or people that used to have shops and now their shirts are in storage, because the whole process can take sometimes as quick as 10 years, but sometimes 15 years. So not many vintage dealers are sitting on, just mounds and mounds of 8-9-year-old shirts. That's typically still in the hands of, the store owner or the distributor or whoever. The retailer,
but so for like we do the Rose Bowl. I have a storage locker down there. We send shit down fresh every month. Sell at the Rose Bowl. We pack it up and we put it in our locker, right? And I've gone down over the years and sometimes shirts will sit in our storage locker for, maybe a year because they hadn't sold. So like we've had them for a year going out and back to, and like we've had shirts that have gone from not dry rot to dry rot in our possession, like all the time. Like it happens all the time. Where like I got this shirt not rot, and then by the time I sold it, it was done.
Yeah.
So like you say, there is that period. So if if you get it when it's on that like brink of going, you're fucked, and then it's gonna dry rot within your possession.
And this is just a theory, but I mean, like anytime in chemistry, or most of the time, like if you're trying to speed up a chemical reaction, like, you add heat, and
True.
the heat itself doesn't cause the chemical reaction, but it speeds it up. So I it's just a guess, but I can imagine that heat might speed up the process a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I want to move on to deadstock digging, because I know you've had some good scores.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any that you want to share with us? And like, 'cause we know that digging deadstock and finding those scores, it's exciting, man.
Yeah. I'd say kind of like the first one is probably my favorite, because I feel like it changed everything about how I wanted to run my business. Like I feel like I learned the most from like the first score, and it was 2,000 pair of like little skimpy 70s gym shorts, with like the piping on them, and I got them for like $2 a pair. And
Nice.
My initial thought was like, okay, I could flip these and make like 3,000 or 4,000. This is going to be awesome. And then I was thinking like, maybe what if I just go really slow and like just trickle them out? Like how would that do? And that's the route I ended up taking. And they averaged like $25 a pair, and it took me 5 years to sell them. And
Yeah.
But in the end, what started as potentially like a $3,000 or $4,000 flip turned into $40,000 over 5 years. And so I never really felt like I made any money, because the money came in so slow on them. But like that kind of opened my eyes to just like, what if I had like 10 trickles, or what if I had 15 small trickles, like all simultaneously running, like these deals that are going to take 3 or 4 or 5 or even 10, 15 years to finally sell them off. What if I just had a whole bunch of those at the same time? And with the deadstock stuff, I think I spent a week like getting everything listed. But since there's multiples, once you sell one, you're not there taking pictures and measurements and all that stuff again. Once something sells, boom, you hit that relist button. And so now you've got 5 years worth of money coming in from a week's worth of work that you did years ago. And I was like, wow, this is what I want. Like I want just a whole bunch of these and just trickle slow money for a long time.
So did you find it? Did you get more scores, and did you make that multiple trickles happen?
Yeah. I mean, that's since then, like that's everything that I've been trying to do. Like, so many of the things that I have like listed for sale, it looks like it's one item. Like if it's on my Depop, it might look like one item, but I might have 200 of them in backstock, and I'll just slowly, never in a hurry. I feel like I'm too far into this job to turn around and find another career choice. So it's long haul now. There's a scary point, man. I definitely within the last few years, and it's not that I'd ever want to leave vintage. I mean, I love this, so much, man. This is like my favorite. It still feels like a game to me. But there did come this point where it was scary almost, because I felt like if I wanted to do something else, it's too late now. And just not having that option was scary to me. Even though I don't want to leave.
Never too late, man.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to do anything else, you know. But it was just kind of this
exactly.
realization, you know, that like what is my work experience now? I mean, I'm 41, and I mean, I have a marketing degree, and I used it for a year and hated it, you know. So
Yeah, but dude,
what
a
am I
marketing
gonna-
degree is literally the best, the best thing you could have to be doing what we do, because all we do, you know, I've talked about this before, but like any vintage seller out there, you might not think you're in marketing, but you are heavy in marketing.
Yeah.
It's the game, right? So like that must
Yeah,
help you a
I've
lot.
heard you say that.
Yeah. So I mean,
I
you know, I guess, yeah, like that, you're lucky in that sense, dude, because a lot of people don't even have that. And you understand, you know, that
Yeah.
just the understanding of how that all works and how people work and everything else gives you the leg up for sure, I think.
I feel like sometimes like my natural tendency is to like rebel against the things that I know I should be doing. Also, just from my dislike of learning about advertising, and you know, it was like at the time it seemed like a good thing to get into, but then afterwards I was like, man, I'm really like not into this. I'm not into this like psychology of making, you know, people think that they need something, or you know, how to get inside people's brains, and I dislike that. And so I think when it applies to what I'm doing now, I'm aware of it, you know, so I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do
But
that.
you can't fight the fact that like what you just described to us about the slow trickle is 100% like a marketing play.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, man.
But and it works because like you're holding the scarcity level. You know, you're not, if you just put those all on eBay and it had 200 quantity for each garment, they'd be like, there's too many out there, I don't want to buy it.
Yeah.
But when you hold that scarcity level, that maintains like the exclusivity of it, which, as we know, is what sells shit.
Yeah, but I think another like fun Deadstock buyout was this was actually here. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I had found like this kind of like garbage store on the bad part of town, and the guy had all these D's Nuts shirts like hanging on hangers out front, and the graphics on them are killer, man. They're like 10 color prints, 2-sided. You know, like someone spent money on these things, man. They're great. And he had like a couple hundred of these things out, and I was just like, dude, you know, let's get these, let's go. He's like, man, I got a pallet of these things in the back of the warehouse. We just can't get to it. And so I was like on this guy, you know, like I bought what I could that day, and I had his number, and I kept trying to get hold of him to get to this pallet, and he kept just kind of bullshitting and stuff. And then one day I go there, and the city had condemned the building, and there's a sign, you know, like in the window, you know, saying that, you know, I guess the building was unsafe or something, and the city had shut it down, and there was a name on that piece of paper. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to find out who owns it, you know, and see if I can get something going. And in the process of like trying to find the guy, the owner of that building, I'm searching his name, and I find him, but it's all articles that he just murdered somebody. And he killed some guy he killed some guy in a parking lot, and his sentencing was coming up in a week. And I was just like, oh my God, dude. Like, I was just trying to find like a phone number, and I'm finding all these like murder articles.
That is crazy.
So I was like, I gotta have these D's Nuts shirts though. So I ended up like getting a hold of the guy, and he wanted to do a cash deal in a condemned warehouse in the bad part of town. And I was just like, shit, man. And so I went.
So wait. This guy was free?
He was, what is it? Is it bail or bond or whatever? But he
You
was
could be
his
on
sentencing.
bail if you kill somebody? What the fuck?
Yeah. And so his sentencing was just, you know, from the time I contacted him, it was like a week away. By the time we actually met up, it was like 3 days away. And so
Oh my God, this is the best story ever.
I'm in this warehouse. The windows are like, there's like boards and stuff on them. He brings a crew. I mean, he's got like 6 guys with him, and they're doing all the counting, and they want to count every single t-shirt on this pallet one at a time. And I was just like, I was so nervous. And
You're like bro, you're going to jail tomorrow. Like, just selling the stupid t-shirts.
I never acknowledged it. I never brought it up. I never even let him know that, like, I had seen everything. And yeah, the whole deal ended up taking like 4 or 5 hours for them to count like all these shirts. It filled up a trailer, and I was just like sitting in there, and I was trying to help and like move it forward and whatever. But it was easily like the most uncomfortable I've ever been.
I bet,
a buy, man. And
that's like that sounds like a mob dealing or something, dude.
It was sketch, man. It was super sketch.
Did he seem like a normal, nice guy, or was it just like he was off, or what?
I mean, he seemed a little rough around the edges, you know.
Yeah. Jeez, dude,
But,
that's a good one, man. That's a really good story. So you scored like a truckload of D's Nuts t-shirts.
Yeah. Dude, I've been selling them for like 4 or 5 years now. Steady.
Nice. I like this plan you have. So you obviously hunt out Deadstock as much as you can to keep these trickles moving.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for me. Like I've had, you know, up to, I guess, 4 employees at a time. But right now, just for the vintage part, like I don't have any. I have 1 employee that helps with the DVD side, but with the shirts and stuff, I mean, it's just me. But if I'm listing by myself and I list 20 Deadstock shirts in one day, but I've got 20 of each of them, then I just did the work of listing 400 shirts by myself in one day. So
Yeah.
that's just why I like the Deadstock stuff so much. It's just allows me to just hit one button and it's like doing all the work again.
Yeah, that is the hardest part about vintage selling, and what we do, and like the scalability is why not a lot of people are getting involved. Well, people are getting involved on the small time level, but no big companies ever want to do it because of exactly what you just said. It's like, we got to list. If you want to sell this shit online, you got to list every piece on its own, and that's so much work. A company, a new clothing company, can list once and sell 10,000. Right?
Yeah.
And that, you know, you're in the middle where you're like, I'm going to get Deadstock so I can sell 20 and list it once. You know, we do that with my brand Frankie because we create, like, we'll use vintage garments, but we'll take like all black Adidas pants and create like 50 of one kind of style. And
Oh, wow.
again, like, do it like you do. So it's like, we call it static. So it's like a static listing where we can resell. Because yeah, it takes the work out of it. Because I feel like that is the productivity killer, and the profit killer is if you have to list.
Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to get burnt out on a lot of this stuff too. I mean, you know, like the first few years you have this like young fire, you know, burning inside you, where it's just it's consuming, like, and you just have to be doing it all the time. But then after, you know, a decade or longer, you know, it's like the love is still there, but it's a different kind of fire, I think, that you're burning. You know, it's kind of like a relationship, you know, like you first get in a relationship and you're just like obsessed with this person that you're like now in a relationship with, you know. But someone that's been, you know, married to their wife for 20 years, like, they don't love their wife less, you know, but it's a different type of relationship they have with each other.
Totally. You
I
got
feel like
to put more work in, guys. You got to put more work in when you get to the 20-year mark. Just like you got to put more work in to keep your interest in your own business going, you know?
Yeah.
It's very true. That's
a
good analogy.
I mean, sometimes I have to, you know, step away for a while, or like find a side project, or, you know, something. But I mean, yeah, I mean, like the burnout is real, and especially if you're trying to sprint, you know, nonstop. If it's just sprint, then
Yeah,
It comes
dude. No,
quick,
I feel
man.
that, and I've had that burnout multiple times in different things. Like I get burnt on doing this sometimes. Like I took almost a month off over the holidays just because like I want to regather my thoughts on all this, and then yeah, you definitely can get burned out. And this is a good segue into the next topic here because I think a lot of young kids are doing the sprint, like you just said right now. A lot of the new generation
Yeah.
is doing this sprint and going so hard. And I
Mhm.
think a lot will burn out, and a lot will, because it's getting so popular, it's like there's a level of this feeling that I think a lot of people think they have to be sprinting to stay relevant, potentially. And
I mean,
Where's
I can
your-
imagine if you're
Yeah.
new coming into this and this is what you were seeing, like I would 100% feel like you have to sprint like that. And I mean, like sometimes like I have to like quit looking at Instagram because I feel myself like being influenced and feeling like I need to keep up with people who have been doing this for 2 years, and I'm like, and I'm just like, wait, like I'm doing my thing. I'm doing it my way, but I'll see like what they're doing and I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm not doing enough, like I'm not focusing enough on, what is like super hot at this moment, like I'm missing this. And I'm just like, God, like I feel myself like getting sucked into that too, even after doing it for almost 20 years.
yeah, dude, I'm with you on that totally. So you're right. You got to pull yourself away. You got to step out of it. You got to fucking take breaks and then I guess it comes back to like not comparing yourself to these people too. It's like everyone's got their own hustle.
Yeah.
And their own thing going on, and you got to believe in what you're doing, make your own plans, and just go with it, because if you compare yourself to everyone, there's too many people out there doing it now. It's crazy.
It's hard, man. It's hard not to compare yourself, man. Like I constantly like having to like stop myself. It's just like, dude, come on, man. Like, like I've always told myself I'm running a marathon. Like this is like for the long haul. Everything is not set up to have the best stuff right now or to have the most expensive things right now. It's about, how are we going to last for 30 more years?
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's in my opinion, it's not from constantly sprinting, chasing down the hottest thing at this very moment.
Yeah. No, that's it. That's very interesting, dude. Like me and Jesse, we have our sources, we buy a lot of product, we get what we get, and we typically sell most of it, right? Like I'm not out there hunting like movie tees right now because it's just not our business, right? Like if I get movie tees, great, it's hot right now,
Yeah,
we sell it,
sure.
but I'm not like sitting on eBay all night like going after it. And I guess but I do find myself getting like sucked into it a little bit. But I also have, like I said, like my Frankie side where we're reworking, and that's kind of where I see like our future in longevity, because it's like we're creating our own brand based around recycling clothing, so we can kind of go like any direction, and it's not like pigeoned into this like uber trend driven super like ever changing vintage market. The market is moving so fast. Like something can be hot for like 2 months now and then it's done. Like, back 10 years ago, like something rode like maybe like an 18-month wave or like 2 years of a wave. Now the wave's like 2 months if you're lucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's too quick to be jumping on.
I mean, you're kind of talking about these waves and stuff, and I've heard a few people actually like just recently talking about like how like rock tees have taken a dive in 2020, and I mean, have you heard anything like that, like, or that kind of vibe?
Yeah, people have talked about that a bit. I think
that's almost
when you
all
say
I
rock,
sell.
it's too much of a genre to just say rock tees in general have taken the
Sure,
dive.
or band tees, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like for us it's harder to sell 80s tees, like 80s band tees for
Really?
sure. Yeah.
Dude, they still sell great for me. Like I
Like
feel
as far as your price fluctuations, like you're pretty consistent.
Yeah. I don't feel like band tees really have dropped at all. I feel like they stayed pretty consistent while other things took huge jumps up, and so it looks like they're not keeping pace with all these things because they're not way up here with the hype pieces. They're still like steadily doing their thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't really watch the numbers on them too much. I just a lot of times get what I can get, and that for me now, like when I price, like we do some eBay auctions, but mostly what I do on eBay is just pieces that are like, I do jerseys, I do things that I know are like for like an eBay kind of collector market, like certain rare T-shirts and things, but I won't put like a general mix on eBay. So when I'm pricing now for my website, it's like I gotta like rack my brain. I'm like, what am I pricing this at? What am I pricing that at? Because it used to be the Rose Bowl that kept me in touch with it because I was so in tune with it. I was so there every month. I see the customer. If I put something up for $100 and nobody's buying it, then it's like, okay, maybe that's a $75 shirt. If I put something up for $200 and all of a sudden it's like sold like that, you're like, maybe that was a $250 shirt, and you can gauge your prices that way. But because now I'm missing that in my life, it's becoming harder to like keep up to date on all the prices, I guess, for me anyway.
Yeah, you can't really just base it on what you're used to. I mean, it's like a constant having to keep up and constantly like price checking things, because I mean these things are just, they're stocks right now, man. I mean, it's just ups and downs and they're all over. But man, speaking of Rose Bowl, like seeing your guys' booth, I was there just a few years ago in from Tennessee, and dude, I was blown away by how much stuff you guys lug out there.
Yeah, it's a lot of work what we do there, dude. A lot of work.
Wild, dude. Like your guys' booth is more inventory than pretty much any vintage, like any brick and mortar store. I mean, just the amount of stuff that's just packed into that. It's just like, God.
We always talk about it. We're like, we need to thin this stock out, and then we just never do. We just keep bringing it all out there.
Yeah. I stopped by your booth to just kind of introduce myself, but you weren't there. Your brother was there. I said hi to him for a second, but
nice.
It was the Rose Bowl, and everyone's busy.
Yeah, I mean, we often switch out, so I might not even have been around that one. So as far you keep rocking with your true business, which is selling online through different platforms. What are your thoughts on the market right now, where it's at, how people are selling? Obviously, was that the first time you went live with Chris last week?
Yeah.
So what did you think of it? Was it fun?
Dude, I had a lot of fun. I was super nervous, this just isn't my thing, and I don't plan on like making it my thing. It was just kind of cool to just like get on there and do it. And like that dry rot, like the article on that was 5 years old, and it I don't know, man, it didn't seem like a ton of people really cared about it. So to have an opportunity to like talk about that in front of his audience, I was like, dude, I can't let that go. And so like he asked me to come on and do that, and then he was like, well, any extra time, if you want to bring some teas and sell and stuff, like that's fine. And I think we had like 35 minutes to sell stuff, and I mean it was wild, man. I mean it was insane how much money you can make just like per minute. I mean it was,
yeah,
totally. I see why people get addicted to it, but at the same time, like if you're not doing that, you're not making money. You have to be doing that to make money, and I like being able to make money, like slower and while I'm doing other things maybe.
Yes, this is a very.
I love.
We got to speak on that point because you fucking nailed it. That's very, very important. If you're solely selling on live and that's all your income, you are married to the live. You cannot step away and expect to make money. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, dude. I agree with you, man. Like, I got my sites running. I got shit happening in my store. I don't have to be there. those are things that, like, they're not passive because they still require work, but they're a lot more passive than you physically having to sell each t-shirt. And like you said, the burnout on the live, fuck, I can't believe Chris hasn't, like, hit a wall some of these weeks, man, where you're like, Jesus.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I you know, and definitely I'm not saying anything like bad about the flea, because I think, like everybody else also, is like, that is one of, like, the coolest, most innovative things that anybody has brought, you know, to this. I mean, like, it's,
totally.
I'm just as blown away by it as everybody else. I mean, it's just like, wow, dude, I can't believe that, like, you created this entire thing. Like, it's fucking bonkers, man. And I think it's, like, a great tool for people, but I don't think it should be, like, the sole thing that you rely on. And actually, I feel that way for Instagram as a whole, as being your main selling platform. You know, I think it's I think it's easy to fool yourself too into thinking that you're doing better than you are. You know, like, if you have like $100,000 year or something, you'd be like, oh my God, you know, I'm killing it. And, you know, it doesn't take too many of those years before, you know, you're getting older and you're realizing, like, oh wait, this job, like, it doesn't come with health insurance, and I'm paying, you know, an extra 7.5% Social Security, and I don't have any sort of retirement, and I haven't been contributing to anything. And then you find yourself, you know, older than you want to be, in a worse situation than you would like to be in. And I'm just saying this because this is, like, exactly the situation I'm in. So, like, I started way too late. I started way too late. I thought I was killing it for a long time, and then a realization came that was just like, shit, man, I don't have a retirement, man. What am I doing? Like, and
so how old are you? I'm 40. How old are you?
41.
41. Okay.
Yeah.
This is really good shit though, dude, because this is what these people need to hear, man. And you fuck with me, and I promote this shit because, like, there's 20-year-olds gonna listen to this, and if they can start young, like, we've done our job, you know, as 40-year-old men, like, helping the next generation. I think it's important.
And man, I've heard, like, on some of your others, you know, like, some of your other interviews, people talking about, you know, where they're investing and things like that, and I don't feel like I've heard anyone say, just like, if you don't want to take the time to learn about, you know, how to do this stuff, just robo invest, just get, like, a Roth IRA, max it out every year, and, you know, learn later. I guess, totally. You know, like, that's the one thing that, like, I wish I had been doing the entire time. I wish I'd just been maxing out, you know, that $5,000-$6,000 a year into a Roth IRA, and I had, you know, 15 years under my belt already, or 20 years under my belt.
Yeah.
But
I mean, dude, I'm with you. I only started, like, a couple years ago. I didn't start young. I had no idea about it, so I'm still just learning, and I promote it because I just want these kids to learn now. And yeah. And you're right. Like, if you don't want to take the time to learn, just do it the easy way. Like, I don't even think Canada has robo-investors, but I know they're big in the States now, and you can literally be set up, like, pretty fast, like, within a day.
Oh, it's, like, stupid quick. And, like, it's like a little questionnaire, you know, like, you know, how risky do you want to be, and do you want to be, like, environmentally conscious, you know, and it's just like boom, 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 you know, and then set it to, like, a monthly deposit, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
good call.
You're done, man. It's like 30 minutes worth of work that is going to change your entire life.
You heard it here on the podcast again. It's not just me; it's everybody. But so I want to talk about. Sorry, did you want to continue on something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, as far as investing, like, I feel like that was kind of like the boring route to take. You know, like, hey, that's the safe. You know, let somebody else do that. But then, like, if you like to gamble, then you could just get, like, Robinhood and occasionally throw, like, $100 into something, and it's like the longest slot machine you've ever played. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's you get to watch your money fluctuate for years. You know, it's just like sitting in a slot machine and just checking it every day and just seeing how it's doing. And you know, throw $100 in, throw $100 in, throw $100 in.
Yeah, at least
And-
it's not another $100 sitting in your checking account doing nothing, or you go spend it on more shit you don't need. You got to take it out of there and put it in something else.
But
So-
where were you going before that?
I was gonna say I saw you posted stuff that you keep. So you keep a lot of shit. You pulled out this box and it had like, or a bin, and it had a lot of cool stuff in it. A lot of music memorabilia, old like bank stubs for musicians. But one thing that I got stoked on was the Rave flyers.
Yeah, those are beautiful, right? Like Rave flyers, like I love them, man. Like I don't know.
There's a
something
whole
special about
there's
it.
there is something special about them, and the art on the Rave flyers is like early kind of computer graphics and like, or hand drawn. A lot of them were like really cool hand drawings, and they were so elaborate. They'd be like these fold out masterpiece little booklets, some of them, you know. And rarely ever did a t-shirt reflect the flyer. Like I've hardly seen any really sick Rave t-shirts.
I've got one from a rave that I went to, and the design on it's fucking awful. You know,
Yeah?
it's just like a terrible, you know, like little I think it says like Funkadelic or something right here. I can't remember what it was, but it did have the lineup on the back, which
That's
I thought
sick.
was pretty cool. You know, and
Yeah, the t-shirts look like
never
it's like
see
some
much.
corporate sponsor bullshit thing. And then the flyer is like this beautiful color elaborate thing with like graffiti unicorn on it or something. I know there's a couple books out about like full Rave flyers, and Jesse has a lot. He's still
I
pretty
think,
heavy
like,
into drum and bass music.
in that era, man, like I definitely was just anything I could grab, like I would like keep, whether it was like promo CDs or stickers or, you know, I mean, I was going to a lot of raves in that era, and I would just save them all. You know, I would save every flyer, you know, just not even for the ones that like I went to, but like, you know, if you went to a rave, you know, get back to your car at 5 a.m. and there'd be 100 flyers, you know, on your windshield. And, I don't know, like I just always loved them. And so I just kept them, and super glad now, you know, 20 years later,
totally.
like open it and like looking through them. I mean, it's just like, wow, I was so happy to have these things.
So
But some
you're
of them
obviously
like, are huge. Some of those
Yeah.
flyers are like legit. They're like this big, man. I mean, they're humongous.
Yeah, they spent money on them, and like I remember putting them all over my room, and if it was like a status thing to like have gone to these parties that you have these flyers in your bedroom, you know, and it was such a cool time. So, where were you? You were around in that mid-90s. You were in California,
I was in Tennessee
in
by
Tennessee.
then. Yeah.
So that's where you were going to these parties, these raves.
Yeah, so I dropped out of high school when I was 16, and I talked to my parents and letting me drop out and seeing if like I could just start going to community college at 16, and they're like, yeah, sure. You know, I was already screwing up, so you know, I started, you know, going to community college and then moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, and like definitely like in like my college years, you know, weekends we were road tripping. I mean, we would drive down to Atlanta, or we would go to you know, Charlotte, North Carolina, or we'd go to New Orleans, or Birmingham, or Huntsville, Alabama. I mean, we were driving we drive 7 or 8 hours, you know, to go to a party on the weekends. And I mean, this was just like almost like you know, every weekend, every other weekend. I mean, it's just like, you know, road trip.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you go have a nap in the McDonald's before you drive home the next day or something.
It was brutal, man. Like I'm happy to still be here after a few of those years.
Yeah,
But man, like the late 90s, early 2000s were like such a weird time for me, because I was like still like really into punk, but I was also like really liking raves. But then I was also going to like jam shows. I was like really into like if like Fish was playing or something, I was like definitely wanting to be there for that too. So it was just like all these like weird styles of music that like just did not mesh at all. Like all like kind of clashed together at the same time, you know, in my life, at least live. You know, like,
did you have the same crew of people that would like do that with you, or did you get with different groups of people?
No. Yeah, different people.
That's cool, man. Was it like
fun though, man.
The scenes that attracted you, like the communities of each different kind of scene?
Yeah. I mean, it felt like something special was happening like in each of them, and I just didn't want to miss out on it, you know. It was like, wow, man, like there's like this whole community, this whole, like with the raves, you know, like it was just like this whole community wrapped around this, and it wasn't like super huge, like as far as like as huge as it would get. You know, it's still kind of like this like underground thing that was kind of like hip to know about these parties and stuff, and it's just like it was just intriguing. Like I had to like throw myself in the middle of it and be there.
I can remember in high school during those years, like 94, 95, it was this very niche kind of cool kid thing to be in the know of these parties and then go to the parties. And if you didn't go to the parties, everyone was talking about the parties for like that next week, and you're like, you felt left out because you're like, shit, I'm not in this cool club that I went to this party, so you had to go. And certain, you know, at this we're like 13, 14. I think I went to my first one when I was 13, so I was pretty young, and like can't believe my parents let me go. You know what I mean? But they did, I guess, because I was with Jesse and he was 15 at the time, so he was sort of in charge.
Still too young.
Yeah, pretty much.
If they looked anything on the inside like the ones that I'm used to seeing, that was way too young.
Oh yeah, dude, it was too young. Definitely taking too much drugs, too young.
Yeah.
And but it was, yeah. I mean, I feel like everyone in my town was going, and we lived in Niagara, which is near Niagara Falls, which our closest city was like Toronto. So like basically all the parties were Toronto, which was like a 2-hour drive, or we were going sometimes to like, I think a couple times to like Buffalo across the border, and then some other little cities around, but it was mostly always to Toronto. And then me and Jesse went to high school in Vermont, so we would go to parties in Boston a little bit too, which was pretty rad actually.
Wow.
And that was later in like 97, 98 probably.
And when you're traveling around like hitting these things, like you really start to get a feel for how like every city like definitely has its own vibe, you know, for parties. I mean, like I'm sure a Boston party definitely had a different feel than like an Atlanta party. You know, there's just the community that's centered around it. I mean, like
for sure, our parties in Toronto were always like proper warehouses, like 2-room, massive raves, big warehouses. And then I feel like all the parties you ever went to in Boston were like clubs in like sketchy areas, smaller venues, more like intimate events, but still really rad in their own right. And me and Jesse, actually, when we were young, our parents took us to England, which was obviously like where raving came from. And when we went to England, we were still like, I don't know, I think I was 16, he was 18 maybe. It was like 96. And we went touring around London and went to a bunch of parties there, which was super cool because when you're in North America, you like look for those European DJs to come over as like headliners, right? So when we got there, we're like they're just playing like every night at like their regular clubs or whatever.
Yeah, they had like residencies.
Yeah.
What were you guys pretty much like just drum and bass and jungle?
For the most part, yeah, dude. Drum and bass, jungle. What about you?
Definitely that. I mean, I liked house shows. I mean, I liked, you know, I love seeing it like a trance DJ. I mean, I would go see like Sasha and Digweed and stuff like that, and I enjoyed that too, man. I mean, I wasn't really like die hard into like any one specific electronic genre.
Yeah, Jesse was way more into it than me. And I know he does appreciate some house, but he still produces drum and bass to this day. I don't know if you know, but he's like got an album coming out on Metalheads.
I think I saw that actually, man. Can't remember where I
Yeah, like he has his own drum bass page and stuff, and he's got an album next year, or maybe this year, coming out on Metalheads. So he's pretty fired up about that. I'm excited to
that's sick, dude.
To hear it. Yeah. One more thing I want to talk about, back to t-shirts, is I hit up a couple people who know you well, and they said that you've been saving t-shirts that you think are going to come into style down the road here. So you want to share a couple predictions with us?
Man, a lot of the stuff that I've been like putting away is actually like bands and genres that I was into, in that time, so like throughout like the mid 2000s, there's a lot of that era of, punk and emo and screamo and stuff like that. Like I have, I just have a good feeling about that. And a lot of that stuff was like, well, at least I feel that this is going to be hard to get later. So I was like, well, why don't I just go ahead and just, start piling it up. When I bought my house, that was like the first time I really had room to start putting stuff, and so at first I started filling up my garage, and then that turned into like, okay, now the attic, and then that turned into, okay, now we got to get storage units, and then warehouse space, and it just kind of kept going. And then that was really my focus, was to, almost, a supplement to the retirement fund, was to also have, a retirement stash of t-shirts.
Yeah. It's like adding longevity, like you said, to the business for sure.
Yeah. And, but yeah, I definitely like still believe in like rock shirts. I'm betting on a new metal comeback, Yeah. I'm already starting to see that. And, like I was playing in a punk band and stuff, like when new metal was, having its heyday, and hated it at the time. I mean, it was just, it was the worst thing ever. But now, sometimes when we're working, we'll have like new metal days, and we will enjoy like a new metal playlist with novelty, of course, like we're laughing and like rocking to it at the same time. But I don't know, it's not as bad as I remembered it being then.
Yeah.
I'm not listening to it, like in my car by myself or anything. But it's a fun genre to revisit.
You got any other categories getting stashed away?
No, not really, man. I mean, that's kind of always just been my focus already. So I'm staying in my lane, of what I already like to sell, and I'm just kind of getting a little ahead.
Yeah, good for you, man. Good for you. Okay, well, do you want to... Go ahead.
Do you know a lot of people that are buying up early, or?
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people recently that are predicting. I mean, it's just basically when you predict everyone I talk to who's doing it is just basically buying the same categories now, but anything that's newer that hasn't been hitting yet. So it's like more recent product, buying more recent movie tees, or more recent music tees, or banking on that. I was like stashing like Obama tees for a long time, and I had a ton of them, or like those like really god awful, like I kind of like them, but those like, they're not rap tees, but they're like tees with like the snowman and like sparkles on them and all that kind of crap. Like I think those will have a day. But
are you talking about like the there's like a Chucky Ice Killer?
Yeah, the ice
one.
Totally.
He's got like the gold grill.
Yeah, I think those will have a moment. But again, like I rarely save shit. Like my business is get it in, get it out, move on, and then keep doing that and just keep buying what's good. I don't hold a lot of stock, and I have held stock in the past, but usually what we've held is like Deadstock hats, because we just bought so much at once that we're like continually selling them, or like things for reworking. I'll buy a ton and sit on stuff, but typically we don't sit on a lot of stock. But again, like that's not for lack of. If I found something where I was like, okay, this is going to be in 5 years, I would hold it. I just haven't found a lot of that shit yet.
That's probably about the last 5 years at least. That's been my main focus. I mean, I spend 2 to 3 times more money on stuff that I'm not selling for years than I do on stuff to sell now.
No shit.
Yeah, and it's hard to balance. I mean, because you spend too much on the future, then like you're shit out of luck now, and so it's you have to like balance enough of that allocated to money that you could make to pay your current bills. And I've definitely gotten myself into a little bit of trouble, that where I was worried. I was like, oh shit, man, did I screw up? Because to get them, I mean, they're not like, usually they're not small buys. I mean, a lot of times they're huge, and it's really hard to make a huge purchase like that and know that you're not going to get any sort of return on it for potentially 5 or 10 years.
So do you have a big warehouse or a warehouse?
Yeah, I had warehouse space. It was shared warehouse. But I just moved out of it, and I just moved like all my storage places. Like I just moved them all to new spots.
So do you just like hold storage units where you keep this back stock and you just sitting on it?
Yeah, and wait. I mean, I'm not like great at finding stuff that's good right now, and I think a lot of it is like the area that I'm in. I mean, even with like 15 years like hitting the racks, I was never finding like great things, and I was never really satisfied with the things coming off the racks. And this is doing it full time for that long, and eventually it's just like what do you need to do to be more satisfied with the things with your inventory? And it wasn't the racks anymore. It just was not getting stuff that was making me happy. So that's kind of evolved into getting this stuff.
So do you hit the racks anymore, or are you done with it?
Every once in a while, but no, not very often.
Yeah,
it's been a while actually.
Yeah, you got to evolve if you want to have that business that's bringing in money from different angles. You got to be able to find the product from different angles, and I commend you on doing what you're doing and putting that money into something for the future, man, because I don't really know a lot of people doing that, and I think that's fucking smart, because that's the stuff that you can buy cheap now that will go up, but if you want to buy it when it gets hot later, you can't. It's gone, and the prices are skyrocketing, right?
A lot of it's not even cheap. The stuff that I feel like I'm buying now. I mean, it's basically the equivalent of probably retail. But if, depending on how I feel about it, if I'm like, dude, this like for sure, like everything about this lines up with, what I predict, would be hitting, then I mean, I'll pay up on it for sure and get as many as I can.
No way. So has this method been proven from the past, or is it too new of something you're doing now for the future?
I mean, I feel like the first part of it being proven was before I started like buying and putting this stuff away. It was just like, fuck, man, I called that, like I knew that was going to be hot. And then there was just, you know what I'm talking about? Where like, you'll see something out and you'll be like, man, I can't believe this isn't like more valuable. And then, a few years down the road, it is. And you're like, shit, I called that. And it only took so many of those before it was just like, fuck, man, like, why am I not acting? Like, if I keep calling these things, like, why am I not acting on it? And so then, started acting on it. But then, of course, it takes a while to realize whether or not those actions were good or not. And so now I'm just starting to get to the point now where all the earliest stuff that I was betting on is stuff that like now I could actually go in there and start pulling out and is ready to sell.
That's so sick, dude.
Yeah. So it's
you're
nice.
already like close to 10 years deep in this program or plan.
Yeah, on like the earliest stuff, yeah.
And that early stuff where you buying like off, you said you paying for retail, so that like you could be buying some things out of like a retail store that's just like, I know this is going to hit when it becomes nostalgic.
Yeah, I wasn't actually buying them like out of retail stores. A lot of times it would just, something I would see like even on eBay. But it'd be around that same type price.
Okay.
And if I felt strongly about it, then like, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. But yeah, it's super nice now that because I've got my bins numbered, and so I'll go and I'm at bin like almost like bin 400 right now, and if I go back to bin like 2, 3, 4, 5, stuff like that, it's interesting to see like where my mind was at the very beginning of that, because I mean it's just a catalog of like your thoughts, at that time, and yeah, I mean those ones are finally starting to hit, so.
Dude, I fucking love this, dude. This is like way more thought out than I originally had anticipated here. And it's fucking genius, dude.
And like none of it is like an attempt to be rich or, buy fucking jet skis or, anything like that. I mean, it's just a way to like, I'm trying to figure out how can I live middle class until I die. I mean, that's my goal. I'll worry about the other stuff after, but like, I don't want to be like 80 years old or even 70 years old and just have no money. And it just sounds like a scary place to be.
That's true. I don't want to be that guy either.
It's wild, man. I was using like an inflation calculator, and I guess hold on, I wrote it down. By like 2051, I guess it's like every 25 years or so, like your money is worth like half, so to buy like $100 item now costs you $100, but in 2051, that same $100 item will cost you $200.
Yeah.
And so, you start thinking about that as far as like having money put back, and it's like, man, for those later years, like you really have to be kicking some ass to maintain just like a middle class lifestyle, the amount of money that would take.
Yeah, it's essentially, like you said, double in 25 years. And then you also got to couple that in with like modern medicine where like we could live a lot longer than like our parents do.
Yeah, I don't have enough money for that. You'd like just let me die.
I mean, I'm in Canada, so it's free, but yeah. It's just like, it could be one of those things where like I don't know, I've just heard that the lifespan predictions are going up. So again, that's just, you need more money. So kids, start planning, start saving some of that money. Okay, dude, any shout outs? Anybody you want to thank, or you want to put anybody on? I did this with my last one with Kirby. Do you want to like put anybody on in the sense like give somebody a shout out that doesn't get enough shine, who you think's doing cool stuff?
Man, I always have like the same one, man, and it's my buddy All Originals, just because, I mean, just since the beginning. And honestly, he's the only person I really know that's even into vintage. I've never known anybody into vintage this entire time. I don't talk to anybody about vintage. I don't see, like, it's not a part of my life at all outside of work. None of my friends that I hang out with are into vintage. And
yeah,
it's weird, man. Like I feel like the homeschooled kid.
If you ever want somebody to talk to, you can always call me. If you're feeling the need, I'm here for you. But you're right. Like, even in my life, I have friends through business now that are really good friends. But then, like, my typical day-to-day friends that I chill with, snowboard with, like, none of them are into vintage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's definitely, it's not my personality, man. I mean, it's not my identity. And so as far as, like, real life vintage people, like, I don't know anybody, man. I know my buddy Glenn, who's All Originals, and
that's such a deep statement that you just made. It's not your identity, and I love that because you're
it
right.
It is a lot of people's identity right now. They need something to cling to, and like this is their entire life right now. And that's cool, man. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's fucking awesome,
Totally. And I think you can be you can be on that sprint, as we talked about earlier, without still having it be your identity, I believe, because I think having something as your identity is like the mindset that you've let it become and chosen to like allow it be your identity, I suppose. That's just an interesting thought. No one's ever said that one, and I like it.
Well, I think people are pretty obsessive, about vintage right now, and I feel like it's mostly, the people who've been in it for, a few years or less are in this very obsessive mode about it.
Yeah.
And, I think that's kind of what's responsible for like sparking it up and giving vintage the fuel that it needed to take it to this level. It needed that kind of like obsessive enthusiasm to build it up to what it is right now. So, I'm thankful for, I'm thankful for all that. Like it's great, cause I don't think it was going to happen from, the older guys. I don't think that we could have fueled it the same way that these guys are right now.
No. Okay, so All Americans gets the shout out, and then any other people you want to thank on here?
Well, man, you for doing this. I watch this stuff all the time, like while I'm working, and just kind of
thank you.
Listen to you guys talk and sort
Appreciate
DVDs.
So. Nice. That's awesome. Okay, well, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was an awesome episode.
Cheers, man. Good night.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. There's lots more episodes to listen to. Go back through the archive and dive in. If you want to support the show, like I said, this is a show supported by the people. It allows me to do this, allows me to spend more time on interviewing people and putting these podcasts out. You can do that at Patreon. There's a link down below for my Patreon. Basically, for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can help me out and help this show continue. Thanks again. See you guys on the next one.